Why would you do that?
Not specifically a bath, my lady.
I asked you specifically a bath, madam.
Then I understood the question incorrect, my lady.
Okay, let's start again. Did you ask any person if...
Okay, well, we're going to break away from that cross-examination of Annette Verheer, who is a probation officer being questioned by Harry Null, the state prosecutor. And we're going to get some analysis now from my guest in the studio, a very familiar face to our viewers of This Day Live, the South African journalist and broadcaster Heather Walker. Interestingly, Harry Null, on the one hand, was annoyed at the answers he was being given, but at the same time he was relishing ripping this witness's evidence apart.
Yeah, well, we've seen throughout the case, throughout the trial, how Harry Null has really relished being able to kind of rip a witness apart. And I mean, this lady is obviously no exception. He seems to be genuinely annoyed at how little or inadequate her preparation has been.
Inadequate being the operative word, because he was basically saying that she was making statements and using statistics that were based on two reports from 2005 and 2009, quoting the Secretary of the Prisons Union, Popenu, but she was also making statements based on one single telephone call, access to one prison where there was no bath facility. But that one prison, she takes that as an indication of an entire system, and it is a pretty big penal system. Yeah,
I mean, there are, you know, I'd say there are probably about more than 100 prisons in South Africa. So to visit one would be a very gross underestimation of what the facilities in general would be. And to not have even done, asked or done further research, as it appears she didn't, is a serious oversight, particularly if her job is a probation officer. She should have a much stronger understanding of prisons in South Africa.
Because, I mean, also as well, this trial has been going on now for some months, and at some point it would have been clear to her that she would have been an important part of the defence team's case, certainly if not in terms of giving evidence, certainly at this stage of the mitigation. So she would have had more than enough time to prepare.
Yeah, even if she'd been notified, when the trial adjourned in August, that she would have to present evidence. Sorry, in September, that she'd have to present evidence. She would have had at least a month to put together a report. Now, obviously, she's got other work to do besides this. But, there shouldn't really be an excuse, as far as I can see, for having not done enough research.
But it seems that Mr. Null has scored some important points here, not just today, in terms of showing her lack of knowledge as to how the prison system works and whether it has the ability to actually cater for inmates who are disabled. But cast your minds earlier back to the week as well, when we had Joel Marengo, who was giving evidence. Now, he suggested that Oscar Pistorius should receive a 3-year period of partial house arrest and do 16 hours a month community service. But what Harry Null showed in his case was that he completely misunderstood the judge's verdict on the manslaughter charge, culpable homicide.
Yeah, I mean, it is a tricky one, because on one hand, if you pronounce that someone is guilty of culpable homicide, it would imply perhaps that they're not a danger to society. They don't need to be locked up. It was, potentially an accident, and they need to move on with their lives with a suspended sentence or the suitable punishment. So from that aspect, I think he could be correct, but he certainly didn't really have a full understanding of the judgment. And I think many South Africans possibly thought they understood it and weren't entirely in tune with the legal intricacies of it.
But I suppose the bottom line is that in spite of that very impressive cross-examination of this latest witness at the hands of Mr. Null, the question is, will it really have that much bearing on the judge?
Well, this is the thing. We've seen her throw out countless evidence from the original trial, and she seems to be pretty impassive, looking at all of this going on. So it's hard to tell what she's finding important and or not. OK, it's a line that we're going to continue with later in the morning, but for now, Heather Walker will leave it there. Thank you so much for joining me with your analysis of the latest chapter in the Oscar Pistorius trial. You're watching This Day Live here on Arise News. There's plenty more ahead in this hour. Of course, we will be returning to Pretoria for the latest on that trial, as Harry Null continues his cross-examination of Annette Verheer, a probation officer who gave evidence yesterday, and that evidence taking continuing now. More later.